Welcome to License to Spend with Tim Whisler from the Whisler Agency. Immerse yourself in expert insights on financial strategies that will empower you to confidently navigate your way to retirement freedom. Join us on this journey towards financial confidence. It's time to take control of your financial future.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the License to Spend podcast. I'm your host, Tim Whisler. If this is your first time with us, we welcome you to the show. If you've been with us before, it's a pleasure to have you back. You know, in life, one of the most difficult situations is when we begin to lose our ability to maintain independence. Transitioning from being able to care for ourselves to maybe needing more and more assistance from others is incredibly difficult. This is when we depend upon loved ones, friends, and maybe resources to help us down this new road in life. Joining me today is Michelle Brown, who is a daily money manager with Advocate Money Management. Having served in various roles over 27 years in corporate America, Michelle transitioned into a new endeavor to help her parents when her father developed Alzheimer's. Here to share her story and how she serves the Central Illinois community is Michelle Brown. Michelle, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Tim. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Let's shine the spotlight on you and share a little bit about yourself and your background.
Great. So, professionally, like you said, I'm recently retired. I had a 27-year career at a large corporation here in the Peoria area. I spent about half that time as a systems architect, manager, and project manager in IT. And then the second half of my career, I really spent in more of the supply chain inventory management as a systems and analytics manager and a project manager. I was certified as a PMP, which is project management professional, and managed staff of up to about 30 people. So I've got a strong background in planning, organizing, really just rallying resources around a common goal, and creating and managing budgets, and then also in technology.
Wow.
So, throughout my whole career on both sides of that, a common theme was always bringing people and resources together to find solutions to problems. And that's what I love doing. From a personal standpoint, I'm born and raised in Illinois, lived in this area my whole adult life, married with two adult kids.
Mhm.
And like you said, I more recently have been spending a lot of time helping my parents as they've just gotten older and needed more help with things, and especially their finances.
Mhm.
And that's really what opened my eyes to a lot of the difficulties that come with aging and just how vulnerable they are at certain points. So when I started managing their finances, I was actually still in my full time career, and it was just a lot to juggle both of those things. Yeah, so I was fortunate to have the opportunity to move into a part time consulting role at my company so I could have more time to focus on my parents and also just to help me transition into full retirement. So during that time, I learned about an organization called the American Association of Daily Money Managers. I didn't know what that was. So looking into it, it's really just a group of professionals who do many of the same things that I was finding myself doing for my family and friends. And I was really impressed with their wide network of experienced professionals, their continuing education resources, and just, the fact that they're all very committed to a code of ethics and acting in a fiduciary role and as an advocate for their clients. So for me, with what I was doing with my parents, that just really resonated. And I've seen firsthand, in my situation, helping my parents, just the huge impact that I was able to have for them by taking
Mhm.
over their finances.
Mhm.
Um, we reached the point last year where my father ended up needing memory care. And,
Wow.
because of the changes that I had made in managing their accounts in the years leading up to that, we were luckily able to afford that. We moved him into a wonderful memory care facility that he's just thriving at. And
Good.
they wouldn't have been able to do that or afford that if it hadn't been for the changes we had made in their finances. So
Wow.
for me, that meant a lot. It was really life changing for them.
Sure.
And I just felt, really grateful and honored to have helped them have that in their lives. And around that time, I was kind of ready to retire anyway from my corporate job. And But I didn't want to just, not do anything.
Sure.
Um, so I wanted to start a new chapter where I could just kind of have a direct personal impact on people. And so I joined Adam and formed Advocate Money Management.
Very cool. And I love too that you said a key word earlier, that fiduciary. Yeah, that's a word that's very, very near and dear to my heart as well. But
Yeah.
for those who are listening in, as well as for me, what exactly is a daily money manager?
Yeah, that's a great question because, most people really are not familiar with that term
Right.
because it's a relatively new profession. It's really, the services have really only been coming up in the last 5, 10 years and gaining more recognition. And they haven't really been offered in this area in the past. Yeah, for those who haven't heard of it, a daily money manager, or that's kind of a tongue twister. I'll just call it DMM.
Sounds
It's
good.
a professional who assists people with managing their day to day financial responsibilities. So it's that simple. It could include planning or organizational things like creating a balanced budget and savings plan, organizing financial records, all the way to the execution of that plan. So things like paying bills, managing bank accounts, negotiating with creditors, or helping file an insurance claim or whatever comes up. As DMMs, our goal is really just to help our clients maintain control of their financial lives. And we just do that by simplifying and streamlining things for them. And then we keep track of and take care of the tedious details for them so they don't have to.
Wow, very cool. Okay, so that totally makes sense. All right, so for example, who are the main types of clients who would consider hiring a DMM?
Well, the first group that comes to mind is seniors. They're probably the biggest group that hire DMMs. And just, you can tell from my background
Right.
personally, they're the group I'm most passionate about and
Sure.
really the reason I started my business.
Yep.
Um, Because, the reality is for them, a lot of seniors managing finances at some point just can become exceedingly challenging, overwhelming, and it just leaves them really vulnerable to getting into a hole
Yep.
financially, or getting taken advantage of. And that happens all the time. Yeah. And the senior population, I just feel like is so much more at risk of that. There's a few reasons. Obviously, they've got more health issues they deal with. Those come with complicated medical and insurance billing statements. Those
Yep.
have to be tracked and monitored to make sure they're correct, and often they're not.
Yep.
Most seniors, even if they don't, develop dementia, most of them still deal with just some level of cognitive decline. Just
Right.
things become harder and harder to keep track of and stay on top of. And then add to that all the complexities of our wonderful modern financial systems that we all deal with these days.
Yep.
And, then there's always an increasing risk of those scams, and they really target that older population.
Yep.
So, a DMM for seniors can help just step in, make sure that all their bills are being paid on time, the right transactions are coming in and going out of their accounts. We can watch for fraudulent transactions. And then, when that phone call or text or email comes in saying, hey, there's a problem with your account. You need to call this number. A DMM can help evaluate that and determine if it's valid or not.
Wow.
So for most seniors, they really want, like any of us, right, as much independence for as long as we can have it. And support from a DMM can really help them maintain their independence because we can just help make sure that the financial aspects of their lives are managed safely and responsibly, and nothing's falling through the cracks in that area. And a lot of seniors have adult children, like my parents had me, who can help them with these things, but not everybody has that. And if they don't, a DMM can really just help fill that gap for them. And then I'd say, even if they do, I know from firsthand experience, it can be a lot, and hiring a DMM can just help alleviate some of that burden on their adult children. Because, most people don't have the great option that I had of going part time to take on that responsibility. So they could, still be involved, but a DMM could just help them with those responsibilities.
Absolutely. And Michelle, as you were talking, it just instantly occurred to me, you are living that part of what they're calling that sandwich generation. You've got your adult kids and you're helping take care of your parents. And that's, to your
Yep.
point, it's getting to the point where to take care of mom and dad as well as taking care of our family is also trying to maintain a career. It's starting to really become a major burden for people. So I think having these services is incredibly powerful. Um,
Yeah.
so a comment you made earlier, I wanted to elaborate on. You said, so you're serving the senior community, and that completely makes sense. I got to believe these people are so gracious to have, you and everybody else, with the association across the country helping them. So as you're helping your clients, your senior clients, are you able to communicate with your clients' adult children so that they kind of know how you're helping mom and dad?
Yeah, of course. I wouldn't want it any other way as someone in that situation myself.
Sure.
The way I see it, my purpose as a DMM is really to protect my client, and I want to make sure their best interest is being served. So if they've got adult children who are willing to be involved, to me, that's really the ideal situation. And sometimes that adult child is actually the power of attorney for the client. And so they're making those critical decisions, and I'm just helping them, do the legwork of carrying them out. So, of course, in that case, we've got to be in lockstep together. And then other times, honestly, it may just be that the client really just feels more comfortable having someone that they already know and trust just to keep an eye on what I'm doing.
Sure.
And, believe me, I'm not at all offended by that.
No,
We can do it however it works best for them. So I can include them in meetings, give them, regular updates. And I even offer, I'm sure different DMMs do it different ways, but I'll offer a customized website where all their information is kept, and then the client or their adult children can access any of that information anytime they want at their fingertips. So it just, to me, it just adds to the team of people that are looking out for my client. And so, yeah, in my view, that's a great thing.
but without question, absolutely it is. So just a second ago, you made a comment about for clients who maybe don't have adult children. Are you able to maybe kind of step in and serve them as kind of their financial power of attorney? Do they allow you to kind of do something like that if they ask you to?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes,
Okay.
but let me go into a little bit longer answer too.
Sure.
So I honestly, personally feel that the best situation is that separation of powers where, somebody they already know and trust can be that financial POA, and I'm providing them with consulting expertise and just carrying out the decisions that they make. So
Okay.
I think if that can work out, that's the ideal. Um, However, of course, things don't always work that way. I recognize that being a financial POA is really a lot of responsibility. It should be taken seriously before it's given to anybody. And just not everybody has a friend or family member that they would be comfortable giving that level of authority to. And in that case, they shouldn't. They really shouldn't give it to anybody if they're not totally comfortable. So
Yep.
um, POA is something I just say I would want them to be very careful about who they give it to.
Yes.
So of course I'd want to talk through their situation, their family situation, and make sure I thought I would be the best fit. But yes, for somebody in the right situation, I can absolutely fill that role and serve as their financial power of attorney.
Very good. So do you serve any other types of clients, maybe besides the senior community?
Ah, yes. Obviously, I'm very passionate about the seniors, but there's plenty of other people that DMMs can help. So
Good.
one other large group that comes to mind that hire DMMs are people who are recently divorced or widowed. If their spouse was typically the one to manage the money, the other person a lot of times may not have much experience
Yeah.
managing just even the bank accounts and bills and just the day-to-day business aspects of life. And then at the same time, right, they're dealing with all the emotional trauma of the divorce or losing a spouse, and
Yeah.
they might be having to get back in the workforce or move and take care of kids, and it's just a lot to go through.
Yeah.
So a DMM can just help them by taking care of their business matters to make sure things don't fall through the cracks and get dropped during that transition, and just let them focus on getting through. And then from there, I'd say it gets broader, but it can really be almost anybody. We've got busy professionals, sometimes high net worth individuals, people who travel a lot, maybe active duty or deployed military, for example. Just anyone who just wants or needs to put their focus on other aspects of life, like their career, family, or even just enjoying retirement. And maybe
Sure.
this is an aspect that they'd rather hire someone else to take care of. So but they want the assurance that it's a qualified person. So a DMM can help really just about anybody.
Wow, really cool. That's great to know. Just kind of want to focus in on a second on a comment you made regarding your services to help divorcees or folks who just lost a spouse. Having received those emails and those unfortunate phone calls over my career with the news, that a client has just lost a spouse. I know that their new chapter of life is so challenging. Like you said, they're grieving the loss of a loved one, or they're going through a separation or a divorce of a marriage, and many just don't know. They don't really know who to turn to, or how do they go? Who do they go to for help?
Yeah.
So I'm sure that having your services available has been incredibly helpful for those folks.
Yeah, I think I haven't been through it, but losing a spouse is probably just one of the hardest things a person can go through. And
Sure. Yeah.
I do think of one person that I helped that was going through a divorce after about 20 years. Her husband had always managed their finances. So, like I said, she just didn't have that, never had to build that skill.
Right.
And then come to find out as they're going through the divorce that he had really mismanaged their money, and so severely that their house was getting taken away and they were filing for bankruptcy. And then, of course, in turn, that ruined her credit as well. So now all of a sudden she's a new single mother. She's got two high school age children. She's trying to figure out, what does my budget need to be? I want to live responsibly. I want to set a good example for my kids. And of course, she wanted to rebuild her own credit. She was really great. And she really honestly could have probably figured all of it out on her own. But sometimes it just helps to have that other person with you with its experience, and that you can get advice from and bounce things off of and learn from. And just, until you get your feet under you and you have your confidence built up that you know what you're doing. So in her case, she did great. She was really able to learn those skills, and she's one of the most disciplined people that lives on a budget that I know now. She built up savings and she reestablished a great credit score.
Good.
So it just goes to show, anybody can do it, with the right support, and we all need that support sometimes.
Without question. Very well said. You also mentioned as well, busy people, high net worth individuals who are looking for ways to leverage their time. So you can provide kind of like maybe like a concierge service to these folks.
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely similar.
Okay.
Most of what I do is usually geared around something financial. Every client's needs are different, and my services can really be tailored to meet their needs. So even if some of it's more organizational or administrative in nature, basically, if it helps them take care of their personal business, I'm happy to help. And if I don't have the right expertise to do a piece of it, I can still act as a project manager, pull in the right resources, and make sure they're all doing their pieces to work in concert, right, to meet that client's goals. So I can still act as kind of like a personal project manager in that case.
Which obviously you're well versed in with all those years in corporate America. That's
Yep.
good. So you've spoken very, very, in great detail about giving some examples. Just elaborate if you don't mind. Again, just maybe give us some examples of maybe some of the kind of the tasks that you help with on a daily basis, maybe to, using your words to help your clients keep things on track.
Yeah. So for the typical client, the first thing we're going to do is start with a plan or a budget. So I'll sit down with them. I really want to get to know them. I want to understand their income, their assets, expenses, and then also understand them. What is
Mhm.
their personal philosophy? What are their goals? So we'll get it all documented, and we have, so we all have a clear picture and we're all on the same page for how they want their money to be managed. And I'll help them make sure that that plan is aligned with their goals and it's going to help them achieve those goals. And if it's not, then I'll be honest and we'll kind of go back and revise some things. So from there, it's really just all about executing that plan. And I'm just going to manage their money the way that they've laid out that they want it managed. So the most typical things I do then are just like on a day to day basis, a lot of monitoring and reconciling bank statements, medical and insurance billing statements, mail, email communications about their accounts, and then just following up and taking action if something is needed that comes up that needs to get resolved.
Okay.
And then I'll also keep track of all their bills. I'll make sure they all get paid on time. And then as I'm doing that, I'm also just always looking for opportunities to save money. So sometimes that could be by, renegotiating a debt, finding a more affordable alternative for some things, or just cutting out something that they're paying for, maybe they don't really need or use.
Perfect. Not That's great. So allow me to play devil's advocate for just a quick second here. I always like to kind of do this. What about something a little bit out of the ordinary? Like, for example, can a DMM help with something that comes up that's not really part of the
Yeah.
typical day-to-day financial routine?
Yeah, absolutely. As we all know, there's all kinds of things that come up that are not ordinary, and
Yep.
honestly, I think these are the things that are really the most overwhelming for people. And
Sure.
I'll just go back to seniors. It can be very overwhelming because sometimes they just really aren't sure how to navigate it.
Right.
So a DMM can really add a lot of value in those types of situations. I have a recent example of this that comes to my mind. One of my clients actually hit a deer last fall with her car. She was driving home at night, and she was able to get home, and then she was pretty shaken up,
Sure.
but then just a little lost on what to do next. So
Right.
she called me and just asked if I could help her, and of course, I was happy to help. So in that case, again, I just really acted as kind of her advocate and a liaison and project manager to all the parties involved. So, I just contacted local authorities, repair shops, insurance company, just to understand what steps of the process needed to happen. And then I just helped her go through that process and made sure it kept moving. And there were a couple challenges along the way. I mentioned earlier technology, which can be frustrating for all of us.
Yep.
But this insurance company's process, and they're probably all a lot like this, but was for filing the claim, you really had to go through their mobile app, and there were very specific requirements on certain pictures from certain angles and how big they had to be, and they had to be taken from within the app, and then a video that had to be very specific requirements. And my client didn't even know how to download an app. So she was
Yep.
really lost with that one. So, I just went to her house and helped her, get the app downloaded, got everything documented for her, got the claim filed. And after that, I just acted as project manager, just stayed in contact with everybody, made sure when the insurance company needed more documentation from the repair shop, that made sure that was happening and everything kept moving along, and that she got her entire amount covered that she should. So that's just one example. But really, it can be anything, other types of things that come up, or a lot of clients, especially seniors, again, want help just getting all their estate information and account information documented and organized.
Hmm.
Having that all can be important for just making their trustee or will executor's job a lot easier when the time comes. Maybe researching a new purchase or keeping track of a government assistance program that they're on, and maybe they need to reapply from time to time. And I can help them with the application process. So just anything that comes up along the way related to their personal business, I can help them with. So I guess I always think of it that, if I would help my parents with it, I would probably help my clients with it. It's really that kind of role.
Nice. I like that. You made a comment earlier, Michelle, about, scams and whatnot. And when you said that, it
Yeah.
took me back just a few months ago when I was at the spring workshop of the Elite IRA Advisor Group with Ed Slott in that group that I'm with. And one of the segments of that workshop was entitled Schemes and Scams. And the presenter was sharing information, with us regarding some of the things that we need to be aware of as advisors in our own practices. But he also stressed about how important it was for the sake of our clients,
Yep.
because technology is advancing so rapidly. And now AI is starting to become a very real part of our daily life.
Yeah.
And this can be make it really hard for people, especially seniors, and not just seniors, but for all of us. It's really kind of hard to
Yep.
identify when something is a scam. So that's something you said earlier that you're able to help them with that.
Yeah. And I would say hands down, the most common client calls I get are calls asking about, I got this text or email. It says there's a problem with my bank account or whatever account,
Yep.
and I need to call this number to get it resolved.
Right.
And so usually that message looks like it's coming from a bank or a company that the person actually does have an account with. And the scammers are just getting so much better all the time at making
Yep.
these look more and more legitimate. I've seen some examples recently where the lengths they went to were just incredibly elaborate and sophisticated. It was just
Hmm.
mind blowing. And it just makes me think, the only reason these scammers are putting so much time and money into this is that it works.
Yep. It's
and
exactly right.
and so you just have to be very, very careful.
Yep.
Um, and sadly, especially when it's those really large amounts and those really elaborate ones, it can just be almost impossible to get that money back.
Yep.
Um, so obviously, the best strategy is to avoid the scams. And in my opinion, that's one of the biggest benefits of hiring someone who's a professional and qualified person like a DMM to manage your accounts, because it really is providing that added layer of protection. Because not only are they keeping an eye on their clients' accounts all the time,
Mhm.
and making sure the right things are coming in and going out, but um, they're also very, very familiar with the details of those accounts and what's going on right now. So when you get a phone call, text, or an email, or some of the more recent ones, a blue screen on your computer
Sure.
saying that there's a problem with an account and to call this number, don't call the number, call your DMM. They're
Yes.
really a great resource and can help you figure out if it's legitimate and really validate that before you take any action and make sure that, if there is an issue, they're going to help you get it resolved. But, most times it's not legitimate and they can help validate that for you.
Very good. And I hate to say this, but we're kind of starting to run short here on time. So for listeners who might be considering this service, how can they go about finding a daily money manager?
Yeah, so in general, it's important to look for somebody who's experienced and reputable. You really don't want to hire just anybody to handle your money. I'm sure that
Hmm.
goes without saying.
Hmm.
Because again, there's just a lot of bad actors out there that are looking to take advantage of people. So my advice would be to seek out a professional who's a member of a recognized organization like the American Association of Daily Money Managers. It's just a good indication of credibility and integrity.
Yep.
And for anybody who wants to do that, Adam's website is aadmm.com. And they have a large orange button on the top right of their website called Find a DMM. And you can search there for DMMs in your area. These are going to be people that really adhere to those industry standards and Adam's code of ethics. So that's the first thing I would recommend. Second, I'd say once you find someone that you think you'd like to consider hiring, um, it's really important just to sit down and have a talk with them. So going into that, I would recommend get a clear idea in your mind about what you're really looking for from a DMM, and then just have an open discussion with them about your needs and expectations, and make sure their services align with that.
Hmm.
Um, some DMMs, do offer different types of services. There might be some that are also a CPA or some that don't do certain things. So, good for you to make sure that everybody's aligned, that what you need, they can do. And they're going to be transparent with you. If they're a good DMM, they're going to be transparent about their services and their fees, give you an idea of what this will cost you based on your situation, and just tailor their approach to your situation. And then in that conversation, I always also feel like you should just be able to be comfortable, make sure it's somebody that you can feel comfortable asking your questions to, ask for explanations, and the way they explain things, make sure that they say that in a way that you can understand and feel comfortable with. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, and then lastly, just one more I'll throw in there. Most professional DMMs will have a client engagement agreement or um, client engagement letter or something like that. That's really important. It's important that you understand and are comfortable with what's in that. So make sure they take the time to go through it with you, and don't hesitate to ask questions or even have somebody else and trust take a look at it before you hire that person. But that agreement it's there to protect not just the DMM, but the client. And it's really important because that's how you have the confidence to know that your needs are guarded in that contract. So um, make sure that I would recommend making sure that it requires them to carry insurance, for example.
Right.
You want to make sure that it spells out what authority they have and don't have, and that it requires them to, follow the latest information security protocols when handling your information. A number of other things, but just make sure you're comfortable with all those terms in there, because that's what gives the client the legal resource or recourse, sorry, if
Mhm.
anything is done wrong. And, it's in a rare situation, maybe it's by willful misconduct, but even by mistake, that document is really what protects the client's rights. So, of course, I always welcome people to set up a free consultation with me as well, and we can discuss their situation and just see if Advocate Money Management might be a good fit. We have a very robust client agreement that we've spent a lot of time making sure it has all the protections in there that we thought were needed, and really happy to sit down with anybody and see if our services might meet their needs.
Perfect. Well, Michelle, how can people get a hold of you to set up their complimentary consultation?
Yeah, so they can set up a consultation either by just calling my direct line. My number is 309-472-3060. Or they can visit our website, advocatemoneymanagement.com, and see more information about us and use that website to set up a consultation. So consultations are always free, so there's really no risk in doing that. And if we're not the best fit for what they're needing, I'll still do my best to try and refer them to somebody who may be a better fit. So I still may be able to help them find the right person.
Awesome. Michelle, it has been a pleasure having you join me today on the podcast. I can't even talk. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. It's great being here, and thanks for helping me get the word out about these services. I think they're really beneficial for people who need that.
Definitely. I can think of a lot of situations right now where I think people could really utilize what you can do for them. So again, reach out to Michelle. Her direct line again was 309-472-3060. And again, their website is advocatemoneymanagement.com. Again, if we experience a situation in life where we could use some help with some day-to-day finances, it's assuring to know that we have access to people like Michelle and resources from Adam. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to the License to Spend podcast to be notified when a new episode has been released. Thanks so much for being with us today, and I look forward to joining you again soon. So long for now.
Thank you for listening to License to Spend. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The views expressed herein reflect the views of the Whisler Agency. As of the date of publication, these views may change as conditions change. The views expressed herein are not intended and should not be construed as investment advice, and they do not address any individual's specific situation. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of the Whisler Agency. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Investment advisory and financial planning services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance, consulting, and education services are offered through the Whisler Agency. The Whisler Agency is a separate and unaffiliated entity from Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC. This podcast is designed to provide general information on subjects covered pursuant to IRS Circular 230. It is not intended to provide specific legal or tax advice and cannot be used to avoid penalties or to promote, market, or recommend any tax plan or arrangement for insurance products discussed guarantees or backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.